Ah, se ve bien. Okay.
Good morning, doctor. First, than all, I want to thank you for your time. Now, my research, my topic, is developing in degradation and forest, and in deforestation and forest degradation in the areas of South America and worldwide.
Okay.
So, taking into consideration that the deforestation and forest degradation is taking place all over the world, which would you say that is the principal part of the world that is affected nowadays?
Right now, the forests are disappearing fastest in Southeast Asia, followed quite closely by Central and South America.
Uh, this could be like the principal reasons for that would be like the fast growing population and agricultural barrier that it's like increasing. Considering nowadays many forests are being lost by several reasons, like we already discussed, growing population. Would you consider that the principal reason are direct or indirect factors of this growing population?
It's a direct. It's direct. Growing populations are directly responsible, uh, but government policies are equally to blame because it is within government hands to set aside areas, to protect areas, to enforce existing laws.
Now, considering that different situations that deforestation bring into an ecosystem, what would you think is the panorama in South America? Which are the factors that are affected the most for this deforestation?
That depends in part on which country we're talking about. Brazil has openly welcomed the conversion of large tracts of the Amazon to growing biodiesel or sugarcane that's converted to alcohol for running their cars. In other places like Ecuador, they depend a lot on revenue from petroleum and open up large areas of virgin forest for petroleum companies. In other countries, there's a large sector of poor people who are trying to make a living and chop down forests. So the causes vary from country to country.
Would you consider that the principal reasons in each country of South America is like the growing population, or it would be like
It's like I said before in the first question, it's a combination of population
several factors?
and government policy.
And considering that the principal reasons why forests are being destroyed is by the agriculture frontier, would you think this could be stopped?
Well, like I say, the agricultural frontier is the principal factor in some countries. Uh, it can be stopped, but it's the hardest one to stop because it's not as easy as controlling one or two companies. It's trying to control a lot of people who don't have land in many cases, who are trying to make a living, and you're denying them uh, their source of income or food. That's much harder.
As I researched before, um this is like a social problem also, because
Hmm.
you can you have like to consider that if you want to protect a like forest. the environment, you also need like to take in the consideration that you are taking out the resources of some people,
Hmm.
which can like go into agriculture and grow some crops to feed their families or to make some income. Uh,
But what needs to happen is we need to find alternative uses for forests that can generate income for these people, such as tourism, and find ways in which these people can benefit directly without having to destroy the forest.
that's right. And with this rate of population growing and the agricultural barrier like increasing, would you consider that we can survive as human race if we continue to make the same things that we are, if we continue in the same path?
Um, there's an interesting book you should look at by Edward Wilson, a professor at Harvard. He just wrote a book, Half Earth.
However,
Half Earth, it's called. Um, the conclusion of the book is that the survival of the human race depends on protecting half of the land on the planet, putting it in reserves or parks. If we don't do that, he says the human race is doomed to fail. And he has a number of, he is not somebody who is just a fanatic or anything. He's a world authority, and we should pay attention.
we know that not only the forest, if we lost the forest or if it is degrading, we know also that fauna is going to be affected
Yes.
by that. So we know that degradation causes many impacts with the flora and fauna located in the places. However, what would it be the impact of this problem in the people who live nearby? I mean, the people who live nearby,
Mm.
like
It all depends on how you run the program, okay? If the people who live nearby kill the jaguar, they can probably sell the skin for $200. If they uh, can show tourists a jaguar to take pictures, they can charge $100 every day. So that jaguar alive is worth many times what that jaguar is worth dead. And that is true for any of the animals. There's great demand for people to see wild animals, and there are few places to see them. And most people in the forest won't be able to find them. They need to hire guides, and that's where the local people who traditionally were hunters can use their skills to make more money saving the animals than killing them.
so. In different words, it would be like better if we like change our minds in the way we are like earning money, uh,
Mm-hmm.
not by killing the animals or destroying the forest, but using them like a form of calling more people, tourism, something like that.
Yes, well, you need programs to convert people to realize and be able to exploit their skills in different ways.
Um, I read that there are some difference between deforestation uh, and forest degradation, which principally are like in the deforestation you cut down all the trees, but in the degradation you still have that forest, but it is not the same quality.
Mm-hmm.
So would you think that the agricultural frontier affects the forest? It is causing like deforestation and uh, the
And
and
degradation?
degradation at the forest, or is something completely separate?
Agricultural frontier is actually the elimination of the forest. It's not just degradation. Degradation happens more in populated areas where people are looking for firewood and cut down a tree here and a tree there for firewood. But the agricultural frontier cuts everything to convert it to farmland. That's not a partial thing, that's complete. Hmm.
Now, talking about South America, uh, which would you think is the principal cause by the influence of agriculture? Sorry. Deforestation in South America is principal caused by the influence of agriculture. Would you agree that the origin of this problem is also influenced by social and economic aspects, where the people that live at urban places, they are like taking advantage of that resource that doesn't belong to anyone directly, and
Mm,
they are like exploiting it.
no, I think your view is a little bit confused here. Uh, for the most part, it's not the urban population that is causing the
The rural,
problem.
sorry.
It's rural
Hmm.
populations that where somebody starts with a farm that is 10 hectares, they have 10 kids, and now 1 hectare is no longer enough to feed. One hectare for each of the kids is no longer enough, so each of them needs to go out and found a new farm.
This is principally because it's like they just go and use the land, and they doesn't realize that this is like a resource, so it comes to
Mhm.
an end. So they just move from for more land for
Yeah,
more
well,
land.
it's land that doesn't belong to anybody, so they say, okay, so we'll take it and we'll use it.
There's nobody that can stop that.
The government could stop it. The government can stop it. In some places, when the people invade government land, they send in the military and they move the people out. Okay, that can be done. It's not very popular, but it can be done.
And now, considering that the climate is changing, would you consider that the deforestation is involved in it?
That what is deforestation involved in climate change? Locally, yes. uh, Mostly in the media, we hear about global climate change, but deforestation on a local level has an immediate effect on the amount of rainfall. And so a lot of the desertification in the world that is being blamed on global change is actually due to local
Local climate
local
change.
abuse of the land.
Oh, okay. Um, so taking in count that global warming is an important issue nowadays, is affecting everyone. What would be the influence of it in the global deforestation?
Can you repeat the first part?
Uh, Now that we know that global warming is an important issue nowadays, what
Oh,
would be the influence
okay,
of
yeah,
it in the
okay.
global deforestation?
None.
None. It's completely the opposite.
Right.
And finally, considering all the points of view previously spoken, would you think we could prevent deforestation and the degradation of the forest by the correct use of the resources?
It's more complicated than the correct use of resources. Like I say, it is involves various levels of government. It involves policies. It involves education. It's there isn't one magic bullet to solve the problem. Correct use of resources is one step in the right direction, but not a sufficient step to solve the problem. Uh, Not a sufficient step by itself.
Well, thank you for this meeting and this interview, uh,
Okay,
Doctor.